The first show after week one, NFL Sunday of the 2024 season. Welcome to the Pump Fake. Jared Bailey with you as always, joined by my friend Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated. Hi, buddy. How's it going?
It's going okay. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm better than the Cincinnati Bengals.
Just about everybody is.
Yes. We can start with the Bengals though, because this is the third straight year that they've just crapped the bed coming into the season, where 2022 Burrow throws 4 picks against the Steelers. They lose in overtime. Last year, they look horrible against the Browns week 1. And then this year, they lose to a team that might contend for like a top 3 pick in the draft in the Patriots and lose 16-10. Is this just kind of who they are at this point? Is we can expect them to come into the year and just fall on their face? That just seems to be the norm at this point.
This one's different for me than the other two because last year Burrow was hurt. It was very obvious. I remember watching that game, and it was a monsoon, by the way. It was pouring, which it always feels like it is in Cleveland. The game against Pittsburgh, as bad as it was just a very weird, fluky game. Like, some of those picks were tipped and batted around. And then, like, if I remember, didn't the Bengals miss an extra point that would have won the game?
Yeah. They scored a touchdown at the buzzer, and then Minkah Fitzpatrick blocked the extra point. So then it went into overtime.
And then I think the Bengals even missed a kick in the overtime. It was ridiculous. So it was just a game that doesn't happen a lot. The Patriots game, not to say that it's not a fluke in the sense that if those two teams played 10 times, the Bengals probably won 8 or 9 of them. But, like, this whole season's kind of been a crap show for Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Hendrickson asks for a trade. Higgins wants to trade because he's on the tag. Chase hasn't bothered to show up. Now he shows up, and then they lose the game. And in the locker room after the game, he says a bunch of things that are getting national attention. Burrow threw 6 passes yesterday in the air over 10 yards. I mean, you're going to tell me that's nothing? Like, I watched that game. He was flexing his wrist constantly throughout the game. Constantly. Ian Eagle and Charles Davis, who were on the call for CBS, were talking about the fact that when they met with him, he said to them, it's been something I've had to constantly monitor. I mean, that's not great. That doesn't sound like a guy who feels ultra confident throwing the ball down the field. And now they're going to go to Arrowhead in week 2. The Chiefs are off a little mini bye. Mike Hollywood Brown back. Adam Schefter of ESPN was reporting this morning on the Pat McAfee show that he doesn't think Higgins is going to play week 2. The Bengals right now, the problem I have with the Bengals is for years it has been Chase and Higgins, but you've also had Mixon and you've also had Boyd and you've had Chidobe Awuzie on the defensive side of the ball. And you had DJ Reader. You don't have those guys anymore. You don't have those guys. I'm like, look, I get it. They went out and they got Sheldon Rankins and he's a good player and that's fine. But, like, they didn't replace Boyd and they didn't replace Mixon and they didn't replace Chidobe Awuzie. Like, Dax Hill at corner is not replacing Chidobe Awuzie.
Right.
I'm not sitting here telling people, you should panic and they're going to go 6-11. I'm not saying it. What I am saying is I think their problems are real problems. I saw them twice this summer. They were atrocious both days that I saw them. So take that for what it's worth, but it's not been great.
Yeah, and not having Higgins, like, I know that a lot of like people in Cincinnati are like high on Andre Yoshivas, and they tried, they brought in Mike Gesicki as like a vertical threat at tight end. The Hudson kid who fumbled near the goal line. Like, there's just been, it's clear that they were missing that clear number 2 opposite of Chase. And defensively, like, especially in crunch time, they punt the ball back to New England and say, all right, we're going to trust our defense to get a stop. And they just couldn't. Like, against that team and that offensive line, like, that's a real issue.
I just think Cincinnati right now is very early in the season, but at an early inflection point. They don't have to win at Arrowhead. They cannot go out there and just get dismantled. Right. That cannot be a game where the wheels come off in the middle of September and they lose 34-10. That can't happen. Because I don't know that this team, after all that it's gone through this summer, is going to handle that. Like, I feel like there's a world where if that happens, this thing goes completely sideways.
They just implode internally?
Yes. Like, this thing just goes completely off the rails. They don't, and this isn't, I'm not slamming Zach Taylor or anything like that. It's just, look, they don't have Mike Tomlin or Bill Belichick or Andy Reid, who you feel like, hey, he's going to keep that ship on board.
Mm-hmm.
They have that guy. Like, Zach Taylor has spent all summer talking about the plan with Jamar Chase. How's that going? Like, what is the plan? There's no plan. The plan is whatever the hell Jamar Chase wants to do. That's your plan. That's not a plan. That's a whim. And so I just wonder now. Look, the good news is after this, the next two games are Washington and Carolina. Okay, so you'd think they would be able to, but look, like you've seen stuff like this before, where teams they kind of miss a window, and then it just goes off a cliff. And I'm not saying that's going to happen. They could very well go into Kansas City and win the game if they lose in emphatic fashion. I do wonder what it looks like in that room after that game.
Yeah, especially if they're 0-2 and you still got to worry about, all right, Baltimore's probably going to rebound. The Steelers start off 1-0. We'll see. I mean, we'll touch on the Browns in a minute, but that whole thing, yeah, it does have the potential to kind of blow up. Yeah. Let's do stay in the AFC North though, because the Browns were a team, went to the playoffs last year, went through a boatload of quarterbacks. Flacco comes off the couch, takes them on this fairy tale ride to get to the playoffs and plays really well. Obviously, he doesn't come back.
Right.
Is now in Indianapolis. Deshaun Watson comes back, and it's more of the same with Watson that this is who he is now. And this is the third straight off season that we've gone into, or going into the regular season saying, maybe the Browns, if Watson can play better, that's who he is now.
Well, I think sometimes we all dance around this, like in the media. Let's just call it what it is. He sucks.
Yeah, he's not good.
Let's just I always love these people who have to try to couch this because either they have somebody in the building they want to please, or because they just don't want to be unkind about it. It's not unkind to just be honest. He stinks.
Yeah.
I mean, has anyone watched him in Cleveland the last 3 years? He stinks. He cannot throw the ball.
Yesterday, okay? 24-45 yesterday. Do you know what his QBR was?
I saw it. Isn't it under 10?
9.5.
Yeah, I remember. So I'm actually writing a piece for Sports Illustrated. I guess I have wrote it. It's going to go up on Wednesday. And I don't want to spoil it too much, but I'll give you a little bit of this. So, I went and did a little bit of a deep dive on a handful of different quarterbacks. And, of course, Watson, not shockingly, is one of them when you're talking about guys who aren't good and got paid. So here's one of the paragraphs in this piece. Since arriving in Cleveland for the 2022 season after a trade and subsequent 5-year, $230 million fully guaranteed contract, Watson ranks 36th of 39 quarterbacks with at least 500 plays in success rate. Better than only Zach Wilson, Bryce Young, and Davis Mills. In adjusted EPA, he's 35th of 39, again ahead of Wilson, Young, Mills, and Joshua Dobbs. I mean, that's what he is. He is, statistically speaking, he is Zach Wilson in Cleveland.
Yeah.
That's what he is. So, he is Josh Dobbs. He is, a bottom rung Davis Mills. You're not winning with this guy. You're just not. And look, my bold prediction, I was asked on a million radio stations last week going into the season, what's your bold prediction? My bold prediction is Jameis Winston's going to start more games than Deshaun Watson this year. And it's not going to be because of injury. How far down the line do you go if you're Kevin Stefanski before you just go to Jimmy Haslam and go, look, Jim, it's me or it's him.
Yeah.
Because I'm done with this. We got 52 other guys in that room trying to win. Everybody knows this guy can't do it. Winston, for all of his flaws, is one of the best backups in the league. He's going to throw it in there. For better or worse, he's going to throw it. I just think at some point you lose the room.
Absolutely.
Now, they're playing Jacksonville down in Duval this weekend.
Jacksonville's going to be hungry. I mean, they're 0-1. They played well against Miami. They're going to be winning that game.
That's one of those games, the loser, it's a 5-alarm fire.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That is a 5-alarm fire, whoever loses that game. Cleveland got their asses kicked by Dallas. Jacksonville handed Miami that game. I mean, they couldn't have done anything more to lose that game other than just run it in their own end zone and give them the ball. So they did everything imaginable to lose. If Cleveland loses that game, and Cleveland is the underdog on the road in it, if the main reason, if they lose, and the main reason they lose is because Deshaun Watson can't do anything against the secondary without Tyson Campbell in it, what are we talking about? Why is he the week 3 starter other than the fact he got paid a fortune?
Right. I'm also doing a piece on Watson for Sporting News, and some numbers that I just barely pulled up before the show. QBR for him in 2022, 40.4. QBR for him in 2023, 43.7. And now he kicks it off with a 9.5 against the Cowboys. Like, we don't have to keep playing this. We don't have to do so many think pieces on Deshaun Watson. It's like, oh, well, if he turns it around. No, he's not
No,
good.
he stinks. He's not turning it around. He stinks. And by the way, I don't know if you saw this. This was published 15 minutes ago. He is being sued again. Again. So this per Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk.
Okay.
He has a new legal issue. This is the exact wording. On Monday, Watson was sued in Houston for sexual assault and battery and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The accusations are strikingly similar to those made against Watson in more than 20 lawsuits filed in 2021. However, the plaintiff in the new case, who filed under the name Jane Doe's pseudonym, contends that she went on a date with Watson. Most, if not all, the other cases arose from paid massages that Watson had arranged. The lawsuit explains that the date was set for October 10, 2020. Watson, per the lawsuit, was initially unable to find her apartment. He called her and allegedly began, quote, aggressively yelling and screaming and stating that he could not find her apartment and that he doesn't have time for this, end quote. The lawsuit then contains the following allegations, and I'm not going to read this entire thing, but when Watson finally arrived at Doe's apartment, Doe had not finished putting on her makeup, so she invited Watson in to have a seat in her living room while she finished getting ready. As she was putting on makeup in her bathroom, Doe left the bathroom door open and attempted a conversation with Watson, trying to ease attention from his angry outburst. Jane Doe quickly began to believe she was talking to herself because Watson wasn't responding. Jane Doe came out of her bathroom to investigate Watson's silence and shockingly found him completely naked on her bed, lying face down on his stomach. While Jane Doe stood there in shock, Watson turned his head and aggressively insisted that she massage him, gesturing to his buttocks. Jane Doe asked if Watson meant he wanted to massage his back, but Watson indicated that it was his buttocks that he wanted massage, and this went on and on and on. He at one point, let's just say that he wanted other things massaged as well. So that's great. That's
the whole other part of this. The whole other part of this thing that we don't dance around is that we acknowledge he's a scumbag and he's not good at football. Like, the Browns are so handcuffed that how do they get out of this?
I'm just to the point. I think, like, if you're the Browns, if I'm in the Browns organization, I'm Andrew Berry from Kevin Stefanski, I'm going to Jimmy Haslam and saying, Jim, it's over. Yeah, I'm not playing this guy anymore. And if you want to just sit there and try to justify paying the worst contract out in the world, fine. But you're paying it either way. So how about we win a few games while you're paying it? Like, that would be my stance on this. They trotted out Joe Flacco last year. The guy looked like God compared to Deshaun Watson. So I just think at some point, if you're the Browns, it's bad money. Just admit it's bad money and just move on.
It's not good. What is good is Josh Allen. The Buffalo Bills were down 17-3 to the Arizona Cardinals, who just ran up and down the field a couple times in the first half on the Bills' defense. And then it appeared that 17-1-2, we're not losing this mode. Threw for 2 touchdowns, ran for 2 touchdowns. Looks like the Josh Allen we know. I know that this prompted some takes that you and I have had a conversation about today that you would like to talk about in terms of the overreactions about Mr. Allen.
I think he was great. I just think the overreaction is just like, he like Rex Ryan on Get Up. Like, he's the best player in football. No, bro, right. He's not. He's not. Yeah. He loses to the best player in football every time he plays him in January. But like, again, I actually think it's an unfair thing to Allen. Why do we have to do that? Just say he had a great game. Yeah. Just say when I think he played great. And he's one of the best players in football, because he is. And he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And he went out there and willed his team to a win because their defense was cheeks all game long. Okay, outside of Rousseau. Rousseau is the only guy who bothered to play football yesterday on their defense. If Teron Johnson's out for any length of time, they are like a tire fire on defense. Because without Milano, the second level is a disaster. Yeah. I mean, the Cardinals, quite honestly, I mean, if Murray sees Harrison doing like jumping jacks in the end zone, I won't say they would have won because there still would have been time and Allen would have had the ball and everything. Would have taken the lead with under a minute to go. I will say this for Allen because I think this is fair. Last year, Mahomes had to just basically carry the carcass of that offense in Kansas City. Now, he had a great defense to support him last year. They were phenomenal. Yeah. But offensively speaking, he had to carry a Kelsey who was injured all year long and receivers who had no business being on the field outside the second half of the year, Rashee Rice.
Right.
This year, Allen has, I think, a little bit of better weaponry than people think. Like Shakir's a pretty decent receiver. Kincaid is a very good tight end. I think Cook is an all-pro level running back. We'll see about Keon Coleman. He was fine in his debut. That defense is a disaster. Like, they are going to have to score 30 points a lot of weeks to win games. And they play Miami Thursday night. Now, I am of the belief, look, everybody and their mother is going to talk about this game like it's some even matchup. This is not an even matchup. I think Buffalo is going to go down there and baptize them on national television like they do every time they play them. My only hesitation is if they just can't cover them. And it just turns into one of these things where Hill has like 190 yards on 12 receptions. But, you know, if it's Tua and Allen, I know who I'm taking in the game. And I've picked the Bills all season to win that division. I think he's spectacular. I just think we get into this weird thing where it's always like, he's the best player in football. It's like, stop. Because then that invites these comparisons that just aren't fair. And the comparison's always going to end with jewelry. And one guy's got 3 rings on his hand. And on 2 of those occasions, has beaten Allen to get there. So I think it's unfair to Allen to sit there and do that when we could just simply say, hey, look, he was phenomenal. And they don't even come close to winning that game yesterday if he doesn't go into Superman mode. My biggest concern with him this year is he's going to have to do that every week.
And that's mine too.
And does that, like, by like week 10, is it just, you're like, oh my God. I mean, this guy's he's just basically dead out there.
Yeah.
Because he's had to do 90% of everything for them.
And that's my concern too. You know, you touched on the defense already. Like, Rousseau was awesome. He had 3 sacks. He had a forced fumble that led to them scoring and taking the lead. So that's a great thing for them to see that they might have like an actual edge rusher, which is something that they haven't had in a while. Terrell Bernard was like, he had 11 tackles, but he wasn't good in pass coverage. I watched every snap of that game. Jamarcus Ingram, if that's who your long-term nickel corner is, good luck. Like, that's not great. It's not good.
They got smoked. I mean, Arizona had guys wide open all game long.
Yeah. I'll say this about Roswell Douglas and Christian Benford. Both of them seem to take care of their assignments relatively well. But there is a big hole in the middle of that defense. And Murray took advantage of it multiple times. He had 57 yards on 5 carries. They were able to run up and down the field on the Bills. They didn't allow a defensive score in the second half, but Arizona still looked very efficient. And that's my worry about Thursday night. Because yes, I agree. Like, Allen's 11-2 against the Dolphins in his career. And they have consistently just dominated Miami. But if, they move around Tyreek Hill in the offense and Jalen Waddle is able to, make plays in the passing game and it turns into, a shootout, then it's going to be more difficult for them to get the job done in Miami.
I think the biggest thing for the Bills that I'm looking at is just how much of this is going to fall on Allen every game. The Cardinals, I think, are good offensively, but they're not a good team. They're not. Yeah. Like, that's probably a 6-win team, because defensively they're a disaster. It shouldn't be that difficult to beat Arizona. Like, you shouldn't have to be hanging out your fingernails and your quarterback has 4 touchdowns and you're like, oh my God, hopefully we can win this game. I don't know. I mean, and if you look at their next 5 games, the next 5 games are going to tell a lot about them. Like, they have to go to Miami. I'm not going to get this in order, but they have a 3-game road trip after. So they play Miami, then they come home, and I forget but it's like Baltimore, Houston, the Jets. I mean, it's brutal, man. Like, it is a ridiculously hard 5-game stretch. I think at Seattle might be in there. Like, that might be one of the games. Like,
I'm getting it pulled up right now just because I do.
I should bad job. I mean, I should have it in front of me. But it's something like they go to Miami, then they come home and they play like, I think it might be like Houston.
So they go to Miami, then they host Jacksonville, then they go 3-game road trip to Baltimore, to Houston, to the Jets.
I mean, that's like, you're going to find out a lot.
Yep.
Because those are all teams that if you're not, they can put it on you. All of them. Like, they can all score 30 points. I mean, the Jets will see, but like, these teams, they can score. They can score in bunches. And I'll tell you right now, if they don't fix the middle of the field thing with Lamar, they got a problem.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we saw for what Lamar didn't accomplish necessarily at the end of the game in the pass game, I mean, he ran all over the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And if Bernard and Dorian Williams are just going to let Lamar do that, he's going to do it a hell of a lot more than 5 times than what Kyler Murray did. So that's going to be.
I mean, look, I was there Thursday night. That's the craziest game I've ever covered in person. That was insane.
Yeah.
That was the press box was just losing its mind at the end of the game. Like looking at the likely touchdown, like nobody had like a great. You were all looking at the jumbotron, which is like a mile away at Arrowhead, and everybody's like, "I think he's out. I think he's in." Then of course you get the shot down the line. And you're going, "Oh, he actually is out." That game was nuts. Everybody to a man up there felt like throughout the game, I'm like, how are the Chiefs not up 17 points right now? Like it felt like the Chiefs just dominated the entire game. And then all of a sudden, you're like, my God, like Baltimore is 10 yards from tying the game. And Flowers is as open as the day is long in the back of the end zone. And Lamar threw like a county behind him. And then, of course, the third down play happens to end the game. But I'll say this for Baltimore, man. They got their issues. Their offensive line's not good. The Chiefs were able to throw on them a good majority of the night, and they didn't even have Hollywood Brown in the game. Like, that's a problem. There's a world there where they get cooked. Like, if Buffalo plays, I can see them throwing all over them. Flip side of that is, though, man, that team with Likely and Andrews and Flowers and Henry, they're unorthodox, but, man, like, they can really, like, if you're not on top of your assignments, they can hit you for right. Huge gains. And so with, like, a team like Buffalo, listen, I think Buffalo is going to be a good team this year, but that defense, I wonder if at the end of the year we're sitting here going, yeah, it's the same story. Like Allen's great, but they just can't get a stop when they need it. And, you know, whoever it is, Houston, Kansas City, when they scored 37 points. And like, that's it. You know, I mean, there's at some point, there's only so much you can do, but Allen was spectacular and he deserves a ton of credit.
I do wonder though, like if they can just win, I mean, I feel they're going to be a playoff team. And if they just keep this thing afloat, if they can keep this thing afloat, they hope to get Milano back by December. Maybe this ends up being a blessing in disguise because then you get Milano back who doesn't have a lot of tread on the tires this season. You have him fresh for a playoff run, and maybe that can be, like I said, a blessing in disguise for him being out the majority of the year if they can keep this thing afloat. Did you have, outside of the things we talked about, is there anything that surprised you on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the Bengals. There wasn't anything that necessarily really like shocked me. I mean, I guess I would have to say how bad Caleb Williams was.
Yeah, that wasn't good.
I saw him twice in the offseason. I saw him at OTA, saw him at camp. Like he looked pretty damn good. He was abominable in that game. He couldn't complete a pass.
Luckily for him, Will Levis was worse when it mattered. So
that pick six is one of the worst throws I've ever seen in my life at any level.
Absolutely. Oh, well,
like if I'm Brian Callahan, I'm like, we're getting into like a Latrell Sprewell, PJ Carlesimo moment on the sideline. Like, what are you doing? Are you kidding me? That is the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
The flip side of that coin is Anthony Richardson made maybe one of the 5 greatest throws I've ever seen in my life.
Oh my God, that throw to Pierce is
tremendous,
unbelievable.
Now, did you see them this offseason, or was it only last offseason that you were there? Because I recall you sending me a text last. Yeah.
I saw him this offseason too. I saw him in a joint practice with the Cardinals.
Right. Okay. Because I remember you sending me a text and be like, I don't know if he's going to be like great, but dude, he's a freak.
I'll tell you what, man. I picked them to make the playoffs this year.
Okay.
They're better than people think. I'm not saying they're great. Like I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender, but like, I think they're going to win 9-10 games. I think they're going to be in that range. You know who's not going to do that? Denver.
Dude.
Yeah.
Everybody and their mother did the exact same. Like, as a Steelers fan, I saw them do it with Kenny Pickett. And then he plays like a halfway decent game against Indy in the preseason. They're like, Bo next. He's next.
Every summer.
All the time.
On my podcast, I spent a month telling anybody who would listen, I'm like, none of this shit matters. None of it. It doesn't matter. He's playing against vanilla coverages. They don't care. They're not trying to stop him. They're trying to put guys in positions to see if they can play zone. They can play man. They can play man match. They can do. Nobody cares on the other side of the ball if they stop him. Nobody. They're not even trying to stop him. Like they're just trying to roll coverages and see what they get out of certain guys. And then I watched that game yesterday. He can't throw the ball more than like 2 yards without throwing
Which
it.
is why he had to leave Auburn, because they knew he couldn't do it, and then he had a dummied down offense at Oregon.
I'll tell you right now, you guys on Sunday, your team, they are going to put him in prison. That, like, for all the Steelers' flaws on offense, I would run the ball every down and be like, that's fine. We're just going to win this game. I mean, Garrett Bowles may not play. Their offensive line's expensive but not good. If I'm Tomlin, I'd be like, we are running the lowest risk offense of all time in this game. And we're just going to sack him 9 times and force 4 turnovers. I mean, I don't know if you watched any of that game.
I didn't watch. I need to go back and watch. I saw like the red zone highlights.
He easily should have thrown 5 interceptions. And
the one that I saw,
diving and it hits. I mean, like in the breadbasket, 5 interceptions, and they caught 2 of them.
The one that I saw, it was the highlight. He threw it to like, I think it was something to Cortland Sutton, and there was like 3 other, and you hear Adam Archuleta before the ball even gets there go, oh no. He like knew it right away. He's like, dude, what are you doing?
There was a point in the game he was averaging like 2 yards an attempt.
Oh, dude, yeah. He threw like 37 passes or something for like $111. Like, that's abysmal. Just now, as a Steelers fan, I do fear that like they're gonna somehow blow this, because
no, they're not gonna.
You don't think so?
I'm telling you right now, man. If they don't turn the ball over, they're not losing this game. There's no. I mean, the Seahawks gave them 2 safeties.
The weirdest game ever, by the way, from looking at the box score.
Yes, they muffed a punt at their own 9, and they threw a pick at their own 20, and Denver turned that into 10 points. 2 safeties, 2 red zone turnovers, 10 points out of that.
Pretty bad.
Brutal. Denver had 9 possessions in the first half of the game. 9. You get that for a game some weeks. Ridiculous. Horrific football.
I will say this, speaking of the Steelers, TJ Watt, good at football. TJ Watt.
Not bad. He was a lot better than even the box score showed. He was ridiculous.
Well, he had 2 sacks and 2 strip sacks taken away because of penalties.
Also, I have more mobility than Kirk Cousins.
Yes. By the way, the way that they played him, just purely pistol, his Achilles not 100%. At least in my opinion.
Didn't have 1 play action pass the entire game. Look,
that's not great.
What are we doing here? Maybe this is why they didn't play Michael Penix Jr. at the end of the preseason, because they're like, we're going to need him.
They were going to need him. You know what? They might look like geniuses. Well, I can't say they look like geniuses because they still gave them all that money.
I mean, you know who they've had the next 2 weeks?
No, who do they have?
They're at Philly on Monday night.
Oh, then they play Kansas City.
And then they come home in a short week and play the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah.
Good luck, guys. Have fun. I mean, do you know what my God, the Eagles have a front that can get after you. You know what Spagnuolo is going to try to do to Cousins in that game?
Baptized.
They're going to put McDuffie on Drake London and blitz 9. Like, that's what that game is going to look like. They are just going to make Pitts stay in because he's going to have to block. Mm-hmm. And they are just going to tee off like crazy all game. Can't move. Mm-hmm. They're just going to go that point right there on the field, get to that point. I mean, good luck. They are if that's as healthy as he's going to be for a while, not good. Not good. Maybe not last place in the division because Carolina exists, but not good.
What do you expect tonight, Monday Night Football, Jets 49ers?
I'll pick the Niners, but honestly, I'm really curious. I mean, the Jets, I guess I'll say this. The Jets are the Jets until they're not.
Sure.
It's just one of those, like who knows, man? Rodgers could be good. Rodgers could stink. He's 40 coming off Achilles. I don't know. So I will take the Niners. They're at home. They have a lot more continuity. I'll say that despite them not having a great offseason either, I'll say they win that game.
Yeah, I think that I begrudgingly and very hesitantly said the Jets are going to be a playoff team this year. It's probably going to be something like
playoffs, not as a division winner. But
I have them. I think the 6th seed in the AFC is where I put them. Yeah, like it was just one of those things going game by game. I was like, all right, I think they'll win that game. Crap, I think they're going to win that game too. So like very hesitantly, but yeah, I mean, if Rodgers looks, I don't think he's going to be, MVP Rodgers, but if he's a top 12 looking quarterback, then yeah, they should be pretty good with that defense. So we'll get on out of here. Matt, I always appreciate you. What do you got coming on the Patreon?
check it all out on SI.com, then on Patreon, all things Chiefs coverage for people who care. But SI is all the national stuff.
Gotta love it. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Pump Fake. We will see you later on in the week.